On today's World Insight, the momentum of technological innovation, a big part of this year's China International Import Expo. Where technology and the tech supply chains headed? Answers from the chairman of a U.S. wireless tech provider.
American company operate in China. We enjoy the growth of the Chinese mobile industry.
And big pledges, but so far little action on advanced economies helping the developing world fund the costly shift to green energy and industries. How can international lenders like the New Development Bank help? We'll hear from the NDB President Marcos Troyjo.
When it comes to green finance, to green development, to green growth, the time has come.
And welcome to World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. Recently, Facebook changed its name to Meta. That makes even more people in the world wonder, where will technology bring us to eventually? One of the key fields of the industry is chip research and manufacturing. And the leading name, Qualcomm.
Oh, this is Samsung, and this is Rongyao. They all use Qualcomm's flagship SoC. This expo, you don't see we display our chips. Instead, we display our partner, our customers' products.
On the sidelines of the world's largest import expo, I talked to Frank Meng, chairman of Qualcomm China. He told me what Qualcomm has been busy doing in China. Mr. Meng, what a pleasure to see you.
Nice to meet you too. Yeah.
I was walking around, quite a number of booths talking about chips and innovation. Quite some competition here.
Well, semiconductor is a large industry, and it's a globalized industry involving many countries and many companies. Digitalization, and for our industry, 5G, AI, everything depends on semiconductor, depends on chips to provide computing power. So I think more countries, more companies involved in the semiconductor, at least it's good for the companies in the industry and the employees in the industry.
What is the best approach from your perspective?
Semiconductor is a globalized supply chain. So from the material, from the equipment, from the fab manufacturing the wafers, then to the design companies, design tools. There are so many things different company, different talents can choose to do. So it's really depend on what's the angle and what's the resources you can get, especially the talents you can get. These days, I think globally, capital is less of an issue. It used to be a big issue, but now with available capital, I think the competition for talents become more and more important.
And the most efficient system.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
What do you think is the most efficient?
There is no single country or single company can supply the end-to-end semiconductor products. So you have to be part of the supply chain. And I think that's great for the talents distribution and also for the capital use. Over the last 20 years, I think semiconductor has been one of the most advanced globalized supply chain, much better than some other manufacturing sector.
I see. very encouraging. But you know, Mr. Meng, going to international events like this, there are people talking about different ideologies, quote unquote, in terms of innovation. Some talk about coupling, others say decoupling. There's also recoupling. There's multilateral coupling, and the list goes on. No matter what the words are, from the business perspective, what do you think is the most crucial so that the benefits can be shared to the utmost extent?
Well, if you look at Qualcomm, we are in the wireless communications, and we develop technologies that can be used to solve complex problems down the road, maybe 10 years later. Semiconductor and mobile communications are very well in the globalization scheme in the last 20 years. So I think both areas that we were fortunate to be operate in, like us, American company operate in China, we enjoyed the growth of the Chinese mobile industry. And so we are now in 5G, and we supply the semiconductor SoC for these 5G smartphones. So I do think global cooperation to continue the global supply chain that makes sure all the companies can survive in the just very heavy on capital and talents. So no one can afford to do that by themselves. So cooperation is a key word I would use.
Some earlier was suggesting cooperation, too abstract a word, but actually now when you look at it, it's really happening every day on everything, isn't it? It's about survival and thriving kit in a way. Mr. Meng, another thing, if you look at Qualcomm globally, many asked why you didn't suffer from the supply chain disruption and the shortage of raw materials. Qualcomm seems to be doing some preparations earlier. Tell me more about how your company has been preparing globally, and what about your China operation? How are you dealing with the complexities that we're facing today?
Well, Qualcomm, I think it's the largest fabless semiconductor company. That means we don't have factories to manufacture the wafers, so we depend on our partners or suppliers. And with the size of a Qualcomm business, Qualcomm has worked with all the available fab companies, regardless where they are. So based on that, I think there is a trust between Qualcomm and our partners or suppliers, and also there has been long sustainable business that puts the two ends together. So I do think our size and the long-term relationship with fab companies that has helped us. In China, Qualcomm is one of the very few foreign companies that has more than 50% of the revenue generated from China. So we have deeply involved in the working with the Chinese mobile ecosystem. All the smartphone manufacturers, Oppo, Vivo, Xiaomi, they are great partners of Qualcomm. And so working together with them, we understand their needs for parts, and we work together with them.
How would you balance, I mean, on the one hand, the nature of business mainly is to create wealth, both for your business and your partners, and certainly for the public as well. On the other hand, the more complex the geopolitics and the current situation, disruption of global supply chain as a result of pandemic and many others, how would you balance that in a way?
You have to put the customers first, because for us it's a to-be business. And their operation, their business to serve, their ability to serve their end users largely depend on the suppliers like Qualcomm and some others. So working closely with our customers and view what they need and working together with them, regardless if it's a normal situation of supply or difficult, challenging time of a supply shortage. And I think the working relationship between Qualcomm and our Chinese customer have helped us quite a lot in this.
On the other hand, Mr. Meng, there is such a shortage of chipsets and semiconductors in the world. We have ever more devices, cars, and many others that would take advantage of them. But so how do you see the situation from now, let's just say within the next 2 years or so, as an industry insider?
Well, due to the many factors, especially during the pandemic, I think the global demand for connected devices, smart devices, and also the ability to do remote working, remote education.
Skyrocketing.
Yeah, just skyrocketed. So that's generated a very high demand. And at the same time, due to the global pandemic, so some of the factories got slowed down or even shut down due to different reasons at different times. So that contrast puts the supply shortage to the situation we have seen in the last 12 months.
Mr. Meng, globally, there's a lot of changes to some of the biggest tech companies. For example, Facebook into metaverse, something like that. So there are a lot of ideas jumping around. So how is Qualcomm, from your understanding from the China perspective, how do you see Qualcomm is evolving in a much bigger picture globally?
From two aspects. Number one, Qualcomm has been focusing on the development of mobile connection and mobile computing. In those two technology categories, we have spent the last 30-some years very focused. So we are in, I would say, a narrow area of the bandwidth compared to the others. Yeah. But that gave us the ability to stay very focused, trying to resolve the potential issues the industry, the society would see or would face, maybe down the road in 10 years. So then we innovate, we generate the technologies that people can use in the future. And so that's one area. And secondly, I think Qualcomm, being in mobile connection, mobile computing, we see some areas, the potential probably ahead of some other companies. For example, for AR/VR, these days it starts to give different names. But if you look at the investment Qualcomm has put into AR/VR, what we call XR, has been over 10 years. Right. And even in China, we start to promote XR almost 5-6 years. So we work together with the industry because we believe if you look at all the device categories, there are very few areas that can match the size potential of smartphones. Smartphone, globally, every year you got 1.3, 1.4 billion new smartphones because people change their phones once every 1 year or 2 years.
This is a huge booth you got over here at the Shanghai International Exhibition Center for the CIIE. So what are some of the, the best and the latest and the most fascinating you have brought over here?
We have participated in the Shanghai International Import Expo since the first edition. So this is the fourth year. So every year we take the opportunity to participate in this platform to have a chance to communicate with our potential customers, our existing customers, and more importantly, to show the technology we can bring together with our customers or our partners into reality, regardless if for consumer applications or for industrial applications. And that's our purpose of being here. So I can also show you some of the great technologies we bring here and also our great partnership with the Chinese customers.
Of course. Mr. Meng, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
My interview with Frank Meng from Qualcomm China. Coming up in the program, big pledges but so far little action on the advanced economies helping the developing world fund the costly shift to green energy. How can international lenders like the New Development Bank help?
To green development, to green growth, the time has come.
Welcome back. This is World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Developed countries have promised to hand out billions of dollars to support developed economies to transfer their economic model and to reach carbon neutrality together. Yet, little has been done, even during the discussion at COP26. So how can we make a huge breakthrough?
Tianwei, cash contributions or financial resources that are made available by advanced countries to the cause of sustainability are welcome. But I think it wouldn't be the most appropriate course of actions from the part of emerging countries to simply rely on those resources to make progress in their strategies for sustainable development. There's an effort that has to be taken on their own. There's an effort that has to be in consultation, in cooperation with other emerging economies. And it's also true that in the 21st century, you have much more of a diverse financial systems where you're applying best practices, when you're applying good policies, you actually have access to those resources. Tianwei, the New Development Bank is one of the first multilateral institutions to have sustainable development goals as part of its DNA, as part of its constitutions. We are about sustainable development, and we have so far directed already a considerable portion of our portfolio to projects that are climate related, about a quarter of everything that we have financed so far. So it's quite sizable. $5 billion is the amount of resources that we have allocated to projects that are climate related. But every single resource that we put into financing projects in one way or another is related to sustainable infrastructure, and one that helps mitigate the environmental impact that is negative to our member countries. So the gap that exists between resources and projects is actually made shorter by the presence of institutions like the New Development Bank. The more actors like the New Development Bank we have out there, the better.
You know, Mr. President, a lot of people have been asking whether we are doing things now only skin deep, or this will go into the real blood of how we think and how projects will be designed, how financing will come into projects, how it will be assessed, and how it will be proceeded. So what do you think, which stage are we in? Not necessarily about the New Development Bank, but globally as a whole.
Yeah, I think some ideas have a time of their own. And for example, when it comes to green finance, to green development, to green growth, the time has come, not only because we have a climate threat, but because of the most important productivity and expansion gains are to be found in those areas. The challenges there are not only about resources, financial resources, or having the right projects, but it's also about equipping the human talent that we need to perform a productive role in the next phase of the global economy. Sometimes, Tianwei, as you know, when we think about sustainability, we directly focus our attention to environmental issues, and environmental issues, don't get me wrong, are extraordinarily important, but there's something about training, something about skilling, something about preparing the human element for this next phase of global economy that cannot be overlooked. Otherwise, we might run into a situation in which you have a brand new technology that is environmentally friendly and that is very helpful to climate, but you don't have the human resources that are necessary to operate it. We have to move forward, but let's do it in a holistic approach, take into consideration the needs of developing countries, particularly in terms of skilling the labor force for the challenges of this economy 4.0.
How is the New Development Bank thinking about holistically, as you said, Mr. President?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most extraordinary features of the New Development Bank is that it is a demand-driven institution. So we do not finance one single project that is not considered to be a priority by our member countries. So that creates a lot of proximity that actually engages us with the direct beneficiaries of the project because the distance is made smaller. There are, of course, different challenges. We're talking about different members. A look at China, for example, who has very clear objectives when it comes to becoming carbon neutral, when it comes to increasing the overall relative size of clean energies in terms of its energy matrix. Look at the case of Brazil, who's had very pioneering experiences in the past with ethanol-fueled vehicles that are environmentally friendly. Look at all of the emphasis now on ESG that you can see in countries like Russia, or even the financing and tax institutions that you have in countries like India and South Africa. So everyone is paying attention. Everyone is doing something that makes the needle move when it comes to more sustainability, to spreading ESG considerations across different projects. And this is very important for us, because as we are part of a family of multilateral development institutions, we're able to share some of that knowledge and some of those best practices with our member countries, and vice versa, so that at the end of the day, the kind of policies here at the NDB we put together is a combination of what we receive in terms of what's being done as a state of the art at the institutional, at the multilateral level, but also with a national flavor, with a local flavor, giving into the profile of our member countries.
You know, when you look at the CIIE, the China International Import Expo, the largest world's import expo, you have been playing a role there. What do you make of events like this and the role of New Development Bank in these international events?
That's a very important event, Tianwei, among other reasons, because of the fact that in 2009, China became the world's leading exporter. In 2012, China became the world's leading trading nation. So it means that in the aggregate, its sum of imports to its sum of exports exceed nominally that of any other country, and that is truly remarkable, especially if you consider that one of the central elements of China's economic success since 1978 has been its further and further opening up to global markets, to international trade. And when you have an event like the CIIE, then you sort of concentrate opportunities in one particular geographical location for a number of days. I think the numbers are truly formidable. I was looking at the prospects for the next 10 years in terms of China's imports, for example. So some projections point to an accumulated $25 trillion in imports. That's $2.5 trillion a year that is a big boost and that is a big contribution to global economic growth, and to give other countries as well the chance to grow via trade, right?
Right.
As you and I have also discussed on a number of occasions, most economic miracles of the second half of the 20th century and the first 2 decades of the 21st century have been powered by trade. For an institution like the New Development Bank, whose focus is on sustainable development infrastructure, that also creates a new avenue of business. For example, we are very much engaged, and I think this is definitely going to be a priority during my presidency, is the issue of trade enabling infrastructure. Trade enabling infrastructure is central to increase the trade pie as a percentage of global GDP, especially if you consider that not only the physical aspects of trade-related infrastructure must be taken into account, but also all of those digital or tech-intensive aspects of trade-enabling infrastructure that have to do with e-trade, with being able to hire services from abroad via digital, interfaces. So all of this is very new, it's very exciting, and the New Development Bank will be there to engage with some of the actors. There's an initiative that we're carrying forward with China's Exim Bank that will unfold in the next couple of months. So we truly see as a very important event in the calendar of trade fairs that are housed here in China, and one that boosts both opportunities and new areas for cooperation for different economies.
The New Development Bank has been very active in recent years in terms of incorporating new members. You just have some new members joining in. Tell me more about how is the latest in terms of these members joining in, working with the earlier founding members of the New Development Bank. How is the process now?
So yes, we have been given this great gift of membership expansion. So we are also living up to the name of the institution. We have the 5 original members of the BRICS, and it's always important to preserve a BRICS character in our institution that's set in our Articles of Agreement. A little more than a year ago, our governors gave us the green light to pursue membership expansion. We have 2 months ago announced the admission of 3 new members. Bangladesh, one of the most dynamic economies of the world, one of the fastest growing emerging economies. The United Arab Emirates, a country that's very innovative, that has a lot of successful experiences with infrastructure. Uruguay, a country in Latin America that has already given a lot to the multilateral development forum. And this is a process that is going to go on. I think in the next couple of months we'll be engaging new members. So you see, it's about resources. So there are more resources that we're going to be able to put to the service of infrastructure for these nations, but it's also about ideas, experiences. We can learn from what works, from what doesn't work. The same with our experience in here. So it's been quite successful in a gradual and balanced manner. It's a process that will continue to unfold.
And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, search World Insights or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of the team, thanks for watching. Bye for now.